Back in 2008, a charming little game was released for the PS3 called LittleBigPlanet. It was developed by Media Molecule, and it was a very creative and unique puzzle platformer, being very family friendly and also had a large focus on user-made content as you could craft your own levels and share them for the world to see. It was a huge hit for Media Molecule financially and critically. A huge crowd of people fell in love with the series, myself included, and it spawned many spin-offs such as the PSP and Vita games, a kart racing game that I barely hear anyone talk about nowadays for whatever reason, and of course more direct sequels like LBP2, which added even more content, and LBP3 that was created by a different developer and rushed to the point it was a glitchy mess at launch that pretty much killed the franchise, and it's been in limbo ever since. Yeah, I know, that went downhill fast. My first exposure to this series was actually LittleBigPlanet 3. Of course, I have played the previous entries for their campaigns and whatnot, but I didn't get my first PlayStation being a PS4 until 2017, so I had no way of playing the previous games. But despite what most of the fanbase thinks of LBP3, I still love that game to death. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I adore level editors in games so much, so just being a creative person like that made me sink hundreds of hours into this game, making my own levels and really shitty movies. And on top of that, there is an endless supply of other levels in the community I could play with my friends and have fun. It was just the best, man. So in case you can't tell, I have a lot of nostalgia for LBP. Like I said earlier, the series has pretty much been in limbo ever since LBP3, as no new games were released or announced. The community was dying out, as well as they stopped putting out new updates to shake things up. But during Sony's PS5 showcase live stream, a new game was finally announced. However, it wasn't LittleBigPlanet like usual. It was this new Sackboy game where it was just a 3D platformer with Sackboy, and it didn't show many things returning from LBP like the level editor. At first, I was kind of worried, since not only does this basically insinuate LBP is dead, but there weren't any signs of being able to make your own levels. I mean, the game still looked fun and all, but it can be kind of worrying when you take away one of the franchise's most, if not the most, defining traits. Like, bro, even the racing game had a level editor, but not the 3D platformer? Okay, I mean, hey, at least the series is finally going 3D in a game that's an actual platformer. Now, with all the pre-release stuff out of the way, we can finally take a look at Sackboy A Big Adventure and see if it keeps the spirit of LEP as well as just being a fun game. You know, I was so hyped for this game. It was actually the first game I ever played on my brand spanking new PS5, so it's kind of special to me looking back. I actually planned on this game being the first proper video on this channel, but things didn't really work out, and in the long run, I'm kind of glad that happened, since now that I'm reviewing it now, the product will definitely be a lot better, since I'd like to think I've improved a lot since I started. Anyways, let's talk about Sackboy A Big Adventure. The story takes place in the world of Craftworld, a planet in the Imagisphere, a place made up of all the thoughts and ideas people have ever had. One day in the village where all the Sack folk reside, the big bad Vex comes in and terrorizes them because he feels like it, and he captures all the people to enslave them, making work out his topsy-turvy, a device that'll bring nightmares and stuff. Basically, he's gonna take over the world with evil, and we obviously don't want that. Before Sackboy manages to give in, he finds a rocket he uses to escape Vex, and also ends up grabbing his plane so he knows what he's doing. After that point, it's up to Sackboy to go on a big adventure to stop Vex's evil plans and save his people, and also become a knitted knight. More on that later. Firstly, I just want to say that I honestly love Vex. The story isn't much here, but for what he is, I think he's very entertaining, and I love how sinister he is. He obviously doesn't have any interesting villain philosophy or anything. He's just a standard mustache twirling villain, but being one of those, I think he gets the job done really well. And props to his voice actor, Richard Grant. I think he does a really good performance on his job. There are also some other characters along for the ride, mostly belonging to the different locations Sackboy travels through. Firstly, there's Scarlet, who's with Sackboy for most of the game, giving him words of encouragement. She's wise and is also one of the Knitted Knights of Craftworld. The Knitted Knights are basically just heroes who have saved Craftworld or whatever, you know, kind of like Oddsock, Toggle, and Swoop from LVP3. Sackboy's also been deemed a Knitted Knight for stopping Vex's plans at the end of the game. The other characters aren't much, honestly. There's Mama Monkey from the jungle area, who's basically just a monkey who likes bananas. The Crab from Crablantis is supposed to be obsessed with money like Mr. Krabs, but it barely gets any screen time. Naomi is this big hologram robot who could also be pretty sadistic at times for whatever reason. This line made me laugh though.
I seem to be suffering from stereotypical sci-fi glitches.
Now let's transition into talking about the gameplay. In LVP, Sackboy's moveset was very simple. All it could really do was jump and grab things and flail his arms around for no reason. The game had power-ups to allow Sackboy to do more things, but besides that, it was very simple. In Sackboy's Big Adventure, however, Sackboy has a wide variety of moves he can perform, which are all awesome. You can do a flutter jump to travel long distances in the air. You can slap enemies now to kill them, which you could before, but all it did was just hurt other Sackfolk, so it was essentially useless. It's pretty cool you can actually combat enemies now. You can also roll to evade enemy attacks, plus you can just keep on pushing the button to keep on rolling and go faster. Which, you know, it really grinds my gears when people say this game is just Mario 3D roll but slower, since they've clearly never tried pushing the circle button before. You also have a nosedive, which is essentially just a ground pound, and you also have the spin maneuver. I think all of these new moves are really fun to pull off, especially since there are a lot of tricks you can pull to beat the level faster. You can roll everywhere to gain speed, and another combo of learn is you can jump, flutter, jump, slap, and then roll or spin to travel long distances. This was really useful in some of those Knitted Knight trials, but more on those later. The actual level design is also pretty solid too. A lot of the levels focus on one central gimmick and expand upon it with new platforming challenges, making most of the levels feel distinct from each other. Not all of of them invent a completely new gimmick. However, most of the ones that reuse an already existing one do it in new ways to expand upon it. For example, this one level is all about swinging around with the grappling hook gadget, but in a later level you use the grappling hook, but this time you have these bubbles added into the mix, which is a cool example of the game combining two ideas into one, since before that there was another level that used the bubbles as the main focus. Not all the gimmicks were a winner though. These directional platforms can kiss my ass, since you use gyro aiming to control them and it's just not fun. Honestly, the gyro platforms are probably the only stage gimmick I genuinely didn't like. The rest were at the very least okay. There were a lot of them throughout the game, so choosing a favorite is hard. Oh, but the grappling hook was also really fun to use. Sackboy can also encounter some power-ups that are tied to specific levels. There is a boomerang which can be used to cut through objects and such, and later on you'll be using it to teleport onto surfaces like that blink ball from LBP3. The grappling hook is awesome because of the grappling hook, and the plasma pumps let you hover in the air as well as shoot projectiles. These gadgets were all used in pretty creative ways, so they're fun to use. Despite the levels being mostly linear with no branching pathways, there are quite a lot of secrets to find if you keep your eyes out for them. Mostly the dreamer orbs and items you can use to customize your sack person, but I'll talk more about those later. At the end of each world, you'll have a boss fight against Vex. Most of them are actually pretty easy because how when you die, you don't restart the boss or anything unless you lose all of your lives, which probably won't happen because the game doesn't challenge you very much. But you know what I didn't like about the bosses? How the game recycles the same boss multiple times. Here's the World 1 boss. It's pretty cool, and I think it's a good boss overall. Now look at the boss in World 3. Yeah, they look pretty similar, huh? And guess what? The World 5 boss is basically the same thing again, for fuck's sake. Like, the boss is fine, but come on, you can't come up with anything new? Well, to be fair, they do up the ante the farther you get, but they're still the same basic concept. At least the second, fourth, and final boss are all different. Oh, and by the way, that final boss is my favorite in the entire game. It's awesome. Also, some of y'all may have noticed this already, but hot damn does this game look beautiful. First of all, yes, PS5 game, but talking about pure aesthetics, I love the way all these levels look. All the surfaces are made out of fabric and cloth and cardboard and other household materials, making it look like all the levels were handcrafted just by stuff flying around someone's house. It makes sense coming from LBP since that game was all about creating things, but I'm so glad they carried over the art direction even if a level editor in this game is absent. You know, I'm just saying, a level editor for this game specifically would be awesome because come on, 3D has way more possibilities than 2D, so being able to make your own levels in the third dimension would be cool. Also, another element that returns from LBP is dressing up your characters. There are a ton of costumes in this game, most of which you can buy from ZomZom with the game's currency collectibles. I won't lie, these costumes are pretty cool. I took a liking to this tiger once and it reminded me of Tony the Tiger. What is cool though is how you can make your own costumes aside from the pre-made one, and even recolor some clothes, which was a nice feature. We've also made some DLC costumes of other Sony characters, all of which are free. These all look pretty sick, honestly. I like the Ratchet one. Oh fuck. Bitch. The soundtrack in this game is also some good stuff. It does a good job including lots of different genres, so there's a little something for everyone here. And on top of that, the songs just sound good, not much else to elaborate on. Oh yeah, some of the levels are actually synced up to different licensed songs like Toxic by Britney Spears, Uptown Funk, Jungle Boogie, and more. Well, when I say synced to the music, I mostly just mean that they share the same tempo. Like the obstacles will move on time with the beat, and it'll loop certain sections of the song in specific parts of the level. The added music in some stages made them very memorable, and there are some of my favorite stages in the entire game. This game also has multiplayer where you and up to 3 other friends can play through the entire game together, locally or online. But for some reason the game didn't launch with online play for whatever reason. It was added like a month after the game's release, and of course now it's in the game, but it was kind of disappointing when I first got it since I didn't have anyone to play with. Let's be honest, who had a PS5 in November? Speaking of which, the game does allow crossplay between PS4 and PS5, which is a nice feature. Like most other games, Sackboy is honestly really fun when you're playing with your friends, for the most part at least. Maybe this is only because of the people I choose to play with, but the online servers lag quite a bit when you aren't hosting. And also, something that can make the game a living hell depending on who you play with is the fact that you can pick up and throw your friends, which is nice for a good laugh every now and then. But I've played it with some people who don't take the game seriously at all and just keep grabbing me, and it's super fucking annoying. So the moral of the day is don't be that person, kids. There's also some exclusive co-op levels where you have to work together with a friend to beat the level, which I thought were all really fun. At least when you aren't playing with that one guy who keeps trying to throw you off the stage every 10 seconds. Sackboy's Big Adventure actually has a lot of replay value in the form of things to collect and new levels to unlock. In certain levels you can find these purple orbs, and finding one on the stage will unlock a knitted night trial. The knitted night trials are obstacle courses you can play through, most of which being pretty short and focused on one central gimmick. I think they're a lot of fun since I love trying to speedrun them. Also, fuck the final trial you get after beating all of them, since it's just a marathon of all the trials in one big level where if you die once you have to start from the very beginning. This trophy is the only thing standing in my way of me getting that oh so sweet platinum, but maybe I'll get it one day. What's also cool is that the better your record is, the more dreamer orbs you'll get. What are dreamer orbs, you ask? Dreamer orbs are the main collectible of the game. They're all hidden in levels, so you'll have to set out and explore them if you you want to collect them. Most of the time they aren't too challenging to get, but some can be easy to miss, so make sure to keep an eye out for any odd looking spots. They aren't really optional though, since you need a certain amount to progress in the game, but you don't have to collect all of them, you just need 160 out of the total 328 to beat the game. As some of y'all already know, I like exploring in platformers, so I enjoy collecting them. I don't find them too hard to spot most of the time either, especially if you have PS Plus, since it'll just tell you where all the collectibles are in the level, via that new feature on PS5 where PS Plus members can get hints in games. Honestly, it would be cool if more games started utilizing this feature on PS5, since it's way quicker and more convenient than going on YouTube and finding a guide for yourself. Sure, some could say it makes games too easy, but when you're stuck on a certain part in a game, you looking up a guide is inevitable. Once you beat the final boss, you also unlock an entirely new world with new levels that can actually get pretty challenging. However, you need a whopping 220 Dreamer Orbs to even access the world at all, and 275 to finish it. You're also ranked at the end of each stage based on your score, either getting a bronze, silver, or gold ranking. I think this is fine, and like the Dreamer Orbs, it gives you an incentive to explore the levels for more goodies, as well as perfect the levels, but Sonic Adventure 2, this is not. I think this is fine enough, since you can tell Sackboy wasn't trying to be a very challenging game, but I think a ranking system that would encourage you to get better would have been nice for some challenge. I'm fine with easy games, of course, so long as it isn't completely brainless, which Sackboy is not, but I appreciate a challenge every now and then, as long as it isn't insanely difficult. I guess that's what the Ninja Night trials are for, since you're rewarded with Dreamer Orbs based on how fast you can complete the level, but there's only 16 trials total. I think it would have been nice to maybe get some rewards for beating the level faster, or as an alternative, make the score required for a gold trophy fluctuate based on the time it takes you to complete the level. Once again, I think this is fine enough, but it does kind of leave a lot to be desired. The game does already have enough content to have a lot of replay value though. To conclude, I think Sackboy A Big Adventure is a really fun platformer. It has fun gameplay, cool looking visuals, quite a lot of replay value, a story with some nice characters, and a good enough soundtrack, so I'll give it a 9 out of 10. It's a fun platformer whether you're playing by yourself or with friends, and I recommend trying it out. Trust me, you'll have a good time. Sure, it may not have the iconic level editor that the series has been known for. I'd rather judge this game on its own merit as just a 3D platformer taking its roots from LBP. I think some of the criticisms against this game's new direction can be a bit unfair at times, to be honest, because they removed LittleBigPlanet from the game's title, meaning this new Sackboy series is its own separate thing. I'm actually very open to the idea of a sequel to Sackboy's Big Adventure that could maybe add to more playable characters like an LPP3, and sorry for repeating myself, but maybe a level editor. I'm sure that alone would boost sales for this game quite a bit. Do I ever see LittleBigPlanet 4 happening in the future? No, not really, now that we have this new Sackboy series. But like I said, I'd be down for another Sackboy game. It may change or flat out get rid of some elements from LBP, but looking at it for what it is, I think Sackboy is a really fun game that I can recommend to any fan of platformers.